Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our online training session on the going linear. So we're looking at the information for any changes that this might have on GCSE music. My name is Johnny Martin. I'm the Chair of Examiners for GCSE music, and I would welcome any questions that you have at the end of the session. We'll be going through a few slides which should make clear that there really is not very much to worry about at all about the situation where GCSE is going linear as regards GCSE music. So, what are the reforms? Basically, assessment is at the end of the course rather than throughout the course. We will elaborate on that somewhat as we go through the presentation and look at the individual units for GCSE music and go into detail about what that means for you as teachers. I'll just give you a second to read the slide. So as you can see, there is the introduction of SPaG for some subjects. That is English Literature, Geography, History and Religious Studies, but that is not the case for GCSE music. We still have quality of written communication, but we'll go into that in a little bit more detail later on. Performance, still the main measure is 5 A stars to C. Certificates in international GCSEs can now be included, and of course we have the English Baccalaureate measure. So these are the main GCSE reforms. So what does this all mean for us? Well, let's have a look at the proposed timeline from off-call first of all. So hopefully you should see on your screens the nice little colours with the different dates. What is happening at all these dates? First of all, the first teaching of the last 2-year GCSE courses is September 2011. So you have already begun the first teaching of the last GCSE 2-year course with modular assessment options. The box has just come up. Just give you a second to read that first of all. Doesn't really affect GCSE music, it's for other subjects. June 2013 is the final date of assessment for modular GCSEs. So basically that's just following on from the 2011 date. That's the time when it's being assessed. Again, the November date has no relevance to music. January and March exam options will no longer be available for any subjects from 2014 on, but again that didn't have any bearing on music because we never did have them anyway. In 2010 would have been the first teaching of the 3-year courses that include the spelling, punctuation and grammar. That's the subjects listed in the box. And of course 2011 would have been the first teaching of the 2-year courses. If you're delivering a 3-year course, then for first assessment in 2014, June 2014, then it will be linear. There will be no option for modular exams in 2014. Okay, so if you've got any questions on these timeline dates or any of the boxes explaining them, then you might want to write them down for to type in later on. Okay, so moving on to the GCSE and more about how it affects us as music teachers. There are minimal changes to the specifications. Across the board, there are minimal changes to the specifications. With music, there's basically no change to the specification except for how we are going to be accepting work for assessment. So again, I'll give you a second to read through the slide. Okay, and as I'll be reiterating as we go through the presentation, this second bullet point really is the important one there, that all GCSE assessments from 2014 onwards, the entire course will be assessed at the end of the course. Again, we will go into detail about the individual units as we go through the presentation. Spelling, punctuation and grammar, SPaG, is being introduced for certain subjects, that is English literature, geography, history and religious studies. SPaG is not being introduced for GCSE music, but we still have some assessment of the quality of written communication. Controlled assessment is relevant to music units 1 and 2, that is performance and composition, and there is no change to controlled assessment content at all. You may continue to schedule your controlled assessments as you see fit, but they can only be presented for assessment by the moderator at the end of the course. As things stand, it is possible to present units 1 and 2 in a different year than students sit Unit 3, but that will not be the case whenever the linear changes take place. Again, I'll give you just a second to read through that slide. Candidates will not be able to carry unit results forward from one examination series to the next, except where those units have already been used to count towards a GCSE single award and a candidate wishes to reuse the same unit result for a double award, or where a candidate wishes to carry forward the result from one or more controlled assessment units in order to retake a whole qualification. From 2014, the headline indicator will continue to be 5 or more A star to C GCSEs, including English and Maths. All qualifications will count as equivalent of 1 GCSE regardless of their size, so that's another big change. Vocational and academic qualifications will continue to be recognised. Edexcel certificates will be included. And of course we have the EBAC, a new performance measure awarded to any student who secures good GCSE results at C or above, or accredited certificate passes for English, Maths, History, Geography, 2 sciences and an ancient or modern foreign language. Okay, so that takes us to the end of the general slides. Now we'll go into a lot more depth about exactly what that means for us as music teachers. Here we have the overview of the course. This is the overview of the course currently, and continues to be the overview of the course whenever we have linear assessment. So as you can see, there is no change whatsoever to the structure of the course. The structure of assessment remains exactly the same, the weighting remains exactly the same, the method of assessment remains exactly the same, and indeed the unit titles remain the same too. So for Unit 1, we will still require 2 performances. That will be 30% of the overall award. It will be internally assessed by yourself as a teacher examiner and externally moderated. Unit 2, 2 compositions or arrangements or any combination thereof. Again, worth 30% of the overall award, internally assessed by you as the teacher examiner and externally moderated. And finally, Unit 3 is still externally assessed, is worth 40% of the overall award, and is a written paper split into 2 sections, Section A and B, where Section A is looking at different extracts on the CD. So what does the move to linear assessment mean in detail for the different units? Unit 1, what means all work for Unit 1 must be submitted in the same year that students sit the listening and appraising paper. That's the big change. If you already did this, and the vast majority of centres were doing so, then there is no change whatsoever in the way that you are delivering the course and the way that the course is being assessed for you. The performances can still be recorded at any point during the course. They do not have to be recorded in the same year as students sit Unit 3. They can still be, if the students, for example, are having the course delivered over Year 10 and 11, they can still record performances in Year 10, but they must be submitted at the end of Year 11 at the same time as they are taking the listening and appraising paper. If students wish to retake GCSE music, they may carry forward their work for Unit 1 still. Students must still submit one solo and one ensemble performance, and there is no change in any way to any of the requirements for Unit 1. Also, there are no changes whatsoever to any of the mark schemes for Unit 1. So basically, the only difference in Unit 1 is that you can no longer submit Unit 1 for assessment in a different year to the year in which the students sit Unit 3, the exam paper. On to Unit 2. The move to linear assessment means that all work for Unit 2 must be submitted in the same year that students sit the exam paper. Again, compositions or arrangements may be recorded at any point during the delivery of the course, so you may still record compositions in Year 10 if students are sitting the exam in Year 11, but all the Unit 2 work must be submitted in the same year as the students are taking Unit 3. Students must still submit 2 compositions or arrangements, or one of each, and there are no changes whatsoever to any of the requirements for Unit 2, and there are no changes whatsoever to any of the mark schemes for Unit 2. Again, if students wish to retake GCSE music, they may carry forward their work for Unit 2. Unit 3. Students cannot carry forward their mark for Unit 3 if they're retaking the qualification. They must resit the exam. So it is possible for them to carry forward their Unit 1 and or Unit 2 work, but not their Unit 3 work. The exam paper structure is exactly the same as it has been before. That is Section A and Section B, split into 2 sections. Section A contains 8 questions with a total of 68 marks, and each question will refer to extracts on the exam CD. Section B will contain questions 9 and 10, from which students choose 1, and that will be worth 12 marks. The paper will last 1.5 hours in total, of which Section A will take approximately 65 minutes, leaving 25 minutes or thereabouts, give or take a minute, for Section B. Again, you'll no doubt be relieved to hear that the set works will remain unchanged. This is where QWC comes in. QWC stands for Quality of Written Communication. It's being assessed in Section B, but there are no additional marks for spelling, punctuation and grammar. There's a scheme of work which has been updated, available on the Edexcel website. And the scheme of work is a suggestion of how you might organise the delivery of the set works, and it combines composing techniques and tasks and so on in an attempt to engage the students with their study of the set works. As always, it's important to try and perform the set works where possible so that students can have some ownership of the set works, so that they can internalise the set works and they can really engage with them. And again, in the scheme of work suggests some places where you can incorporate performance into your delivery. There's no change to the depth of study required for the set works. Exactly what has been required for 2011, what will be required for 2012, the same requirement will continue through 2013 and 2014. It's possible to learn facts about each set work under the headings of the musical elements. Some musical elements are more pertinent to some set works than others, and of course when students learn under the headings of the musical elements, it helps them certainly with their extended writing in section B, but the same knowledge can be mapped across into the section A material too. If you're not already aware of the service, we have a service called Ask the Expert. Ask the Expert is a free service which you may send in an email with any questions that you have. Whenever you email, one of the senior examiners will answer you directly within 3 working days. It's a very useful service. I think I recognise a couple of names on the list from Ask the Expert queries. There'll be a series of mailings over this month and last month, and March, to ensure you're kept up to date about the reforms. And of course, we have our subject page on the Edexcel website, which we update regularly with new information. So, in summary, the reform is that we are moving to linear assessment. It will not be unitized assessment, modular assessment. There are marks for spelling, punctuation and grammar in the subjects listed. There will be no change in the subject content of GCSE specifications. There's no plan to change the content of controlled assessment. Units are not reset before the cash-in, and exams are restricted to the summer only. But as, of course, you're aware, the vast majority of these things have no impact whatsoever on GCSE music, which always was restricted to the summer series anyway. And as I said earlier, the vast majority of teachers were handing in the work for Units 1 and 2 in the same year as the work for Unit 3 as well. Which really brings us to the end of the presentation. The overall message really is that there is really no change whatsoever to the content, no change whatsoever to the assessment, and the only change which will have any impact is the submission of the work for Units 1 and 2. So I would now welcome any questions from anybody. If there's anything that you're unclear of, anything which is still concerning you, if you can please type in your questions. Thank you very much.